Star Wars games in the last 10 years have had their ups and downs, but there's definitely been a long list of memorable titles. Over 70 Star Wars games released between 2010 and 2020. Hey everyone, it's Andrew, and from those 70 games, today I'm going to take a look at the top 10 Star Wars games from the 2010s. And all of these games will be taken from my recent video, which shows every single Star Wars game released last decade. If you want to watch that video, there's a link to it in the top right hand corner of this video. Now, the ranking of this top 10 list is going to be based on my personal opinion, combined with the general consensus I've seen online as my time as a Star Wars gamer and YouTuber, as well as each game's official reviews from reputable online gaming sites. Lots of people always expressing their opinions about Star Wars games, and recently I put out a question to you guys on Twitter asking what your favorite Star Wars games are, so I'm taking stuff from that list. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's @Bombastic. And to compile this list, I want to look at the most well-rounded Star Wars games of the decade and compare gameplay and how much content's in each game and figure out which Star Wars games from the last 10 years were the most memorable or most influential. Some of the games on this list brought something new and unique to Star Wars gaming or built on games from the past, which is what made them memorable. And obviously this list might be a bit controversial. I'm sure you guys will have your own list of best Star Wars games. You can let me know your list in the comments. So let's begin. Here are the top 10 Star Wars games from the 2010s. Coming in at 10th place, a mobile game, which I think deserves its place on this list due to its high popularity but short lifespan. Star Wars Force Arena. Probably the most promising Star Wars game of the decade that became the most disappointing. Force Arena was a PvP real-time strategy game developed by Netmarble, a Korean mobile gaming company in partnership with Lucasfilm. The game's launch was great, immediately becoming one of the most popular Star Wars games on the market. But unfortunately, due to Netmarble's lack of community support and their failure to listen to community feedback, the game's player base significantly dropped month after month. Broken parts of the game were never fixed or addressed by devs, such as matchmaking. Certain overpowered characters were never nerfed, making gameplay one-sided and disappointing. And in early 2019, the game was shut down after 2 years of playability. By this time, Force Arena had also been pumped with numerous options for in-game microtransactions, adopting elements of a pay-to-win model which deterred a huge part of its player base. But I think what was so disappointing about Force Arena was how strongly the game started and how much fun it was to play at launch. It was really something new for Star Wars mobile gaming, and that's the reason I decided to include it on this list, because it was memorable for that fact. It also received multiple updates through its lifespan, adding more characters from different films such as Solo, a Star Wars story, but this one goes down in history as one of the most disappointing ends to a Star Wars game. Next up in 9th place, we have LEGO Star Wars 3: The Clone Wars. Released in 2011, this game was developed by TT Games and was the studio's first Star Wars release since LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, released in 2007, which combined LEGO Star Wars the video game from 2005 and LEGO Star Wars the original trilogy from 2006. And The Complete Saga is arguably still the best LEGO game ever created, and LEGO Star Wars 3 didn't fully live up to what the originals created, but that in no way meant it was a bad game. The game is set between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith and features characters from the Clone Wars TV series along with characters from the original Star Wars films, over 114 characters in total. And although some people complained of repetitive gameplay and the Clone Wars not possessing the same creativity as the original, the game was still loads of fun to play, mainly because of its heavy focus on the Clone Wars. I personally love how many different clones you can unlock and play as in this game, including Commander Cody, Captain Rex, Pons, and many more. And these characters mixed in with original characters like Greedo, Imperial Guards, and the Gonk Droid make it even more memorable. The game begins in the Geonosis arena, from where you play through specific moments from the Clone Wars, with 3 main chapters: the Count Dooku chapter, General Grievous, then Asajj Ventress chapter. Technical aspects of this game include the ability to display more than 200 moving objects on screen at one time, clearly seen in the opening Geonosis episode. Also graphically, this game is more detailed than previous LEGO Star Wars games, with improvements in lighting and shadows. Overall, this is a huge LEGO game with a giant original hub world set on Republic and Separatist capital ships, and couch co-op multiplayer always makes things more interesting. Number 8 on the list, I'm giving to Vader Immortal, a Star Wars VR series from 2019. Some may argue this game belongs higher on this list due to its technical feats in virtual reality technology, Vader Immortal actually received an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Innovation in Interactive Media. And if you've never played a Star Wars game in VR, this game is certainly a great place to start. The game is developed by ILM X-Lab, Lucasfilm's immersive entertainment studio, which was founded in 2015 to experiment with creating Star Wars VR projects such as Trials on Tatooine and Droid Repair Bay. Vader Immortal is a 3-part VR story set at Vader's castle on Mustafar, as seen in Rogue One. The entire game takes place from your first-person perspective, with you playing as an unnamed protagonist who's been drawn into Vader's scheme to resurrect Padme using the Force. He's still going after Padme. You get to wield blasters, lightsabers, and navigate through each mission, watching the story unfold before your eyes. The game feels like an interactive movie, and currently is only playable on the Oculus Quest VR headset. Each of the 3 episodes play for less than an hour, but there's a lightsaber dojo game mode which allows you to face off against waves of bots with different lightsaber options and force abilities. Overall, Vader Immortal is a huge step in the right direction for VR Star Wars gaming, and ILM X-Lab seem to be paving the way for future Star Wars VR titles. Okay, next is 7th place on the list, which goes to another LEGO Star Wars game. Released in 2016 as a tie-in for the movie, LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens is the next AAA LEGO Star Wars game developed by TT Games. The game was released about 6 months after the film, and follows the story of The Force Awakens with a prologue mission including the events of the final act of The Return of the Jedi. You get to defeat the Empire on Endor, defeat Palpatine on the second Death Star, then blow it up in the Millennium Falcon. The Force Awakens built on what all the previous LEGO Star Wars games had established, but once again, people argued it didn't capture the magic of the original. It does, however, feature more playable characters than all previous LEGO Star Wars games, with over 204, including characters from The Force Awakens, the original trilogy, and the prequels. This game also introduced the multi-builds option to LEGO games, with the ability to use the same pieces to build different objects. And the game was unique for featuring the actual voiced cast for The Force Awakens, with even Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher reprising their roles as Han Solo and Leia Organa. 6th place on the list belongs to one of the biggest AAA Star Wars games of the last decade, Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2, a single-player Star Wars action-adventure game more memorable for its over-the-top force powers and gameplay than its story. One of the final games to be developed by LucasArts, you play as the clone of Galen Marek, more commonly known as Starkiller, the secret apprentice of Darth Vader. Once escaping from Vader, Starkiller goes on a journey through the galaxy to find his true identity and his long-lost love. And The Force Unleashed 2 definitely became a favorite among fans of Star Wars gaming, highly due to its gameplay building on what was seen in the first Force Unleashed game from 2008. Although gameplay could become repetitive, The Force Unleashed 2 was great at making the player feel like an overpowered Force user with ridiculous Force abilities, including Force Lightning, the ability to pick up and throw multiple enemies across the map at once, and the ability to dismember enemies with Starkiller's dual lightsabers. This game is worth replaying just to experience the raw power of Starkiller, and is vastly different to the experience you get playing as Cal Kestis in Jedi Fallen Order. These games are quite opposite in that way. Number 5 on the list is a childhood favorite for lots of Star Wars gamers, a game that wasn't a AAA title and didn't match other games on this list in terms of graphics, but instead earned its place through its simple charm and wide range of minigames. Star Wars Clone Wars Adventures. Released in 2010 by Sony Online Entertainment and shut down in March 2014. In the game, players would create an avatar and hang out in public lobbies or have fun playing a bunch of Clone Wars themed minigames. By playing minigames, you'd earn Republic credits to buy new ships for the game, furniture for your apartment, outfits, gear, and weapons. The game was a free-to-play online virtual world, with the addition of a paid membership unlocking more of the game's features. You could walk around the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and interact with other players, prominent Jedi from the Clone Wars. You could play over 20 different minigames, including speeder bike racing, lightsaber duel, and my favorite, Stunt Gungan, where you'd shoot Jar Jar into the air and attempt to have him travel as far as possible. What a game. And if you still want to play it, there's a community-made Clone Wars Adventures emulator that's attempting to rebuild it. Go check that out. Number 4 on the list is the game I was most excited for before it came out. When this got announced, I couldn't wait to get my hands on it or even to just see a few minutes of gameplay. Star Wars Battlefront, EA's relaunch of the highly popular Battlefront series, originally developed by Pandemic Studios in the mid-2000s, my childhood favorite games. Star Wars Battlefront delivered on so much. It recreated highly immersive Star Wars battles from the original trilogy, which you could now experience firsthand in more detail than ever. The visual, graphical, and audio developments of this game are still among some of the best in the gaming industry, and there's still nothing like playing Walker Assault on Hoth, Endor, Jakku, feeling like you play a pivotal role in these large-scale Star Wars battles. I have a lot of good memories playing this game with friends, and although it was criticized for its lack of content and limited customization options, you cannot deny this game's technical aspirations, creating the most immersive Star Wars experience at the time. And this game paved the way for our third place on this list, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the game that redeemed itself from arguably the most controversial game release in history. You probably know the story. Battlefront 2 launched with a heavy focus on loot boxes and a pay-to-win structure, but since launch, progression was redesigned, microtransactions were reconfigured to only apply to cosmetic items, and the game received numerous updates of immersive content, creating what we have today. The development of the large-scale conquest-style game mode known as Capital Supremacy, along with the numerous Clone Wars updates and addition of heroes such as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and General Grievous, are what brought so many players back to Battlefront 2 and re-secured the strong player base that was missing just 1 month after launch. Today, Battlefront 2 is one of the most large-scale, immersive Star Wars gaming experiences available, with a large roster of characters, skins, and development support continuing into the future. Having come back from near death, I'm really interested to see how Battlefront 2 continues to evolve. Now, second and first place on this list were really difficult to decide and choose between. To make this decision, I wanted to weigh up both games' technical achievements, gameplay mechanics, storytelling, and longevity, and compare them to figure out how I could decide on a winner. To be honest, choosing the position of all games on this list has been really difficult because each has its own strengths and weaknesses, and I find it really hard to place one after the other. But here we are. Second place goes to Star Wars: The Old Republic. Launched all the way back in 2012 and developed by EA studio BioWare. The Old Republic is a massively multiplayer online RPG still updated and supported to this day. And this game's longevity is partly why I think it deserves second place. The plot of The Old Republic takes place 3,600 years before the Skywalker saga, and when starting the game, you can choose to join either the Republic or the Sith, with the option of choosing from 8 different classes. You'll face moral challenges and make decisions as you play through your character's story, level up, acquire different weapons and items, and experience some deep Star Wars expanded universe lore. This game's storytelling is incredible, and the fact that it's been sustained over such a long time I think is really impressive. The game has received numerous updates since launch, notably the Shadow of Revan. Yes, I said Revan this time, not Raven. I deeply apologize to anyone I triggered in my last video. No idea why I got that wrong. It's 100% Revan. A few interesting facts about the Old Republic. It had 1 million subscribers in its first 3 days of launch, which made it the fastest growing MMO ever at the time. And in October 2019, EA announced that the Old Republic had earned nearly $1 billion since launch. The game originally cost $200 million to develop, so it's obviously been a hugely popular success and is one of the most successful Star Wars games ever created. And finally, first place on the list I just have to give to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This game was like nothing I'd ever experienced before in the Star Wars universe, and for me, it gets 10 out of 10 in terms of creativity, originality in gameplay and exploration, and told a really compelling story that I thought was one of the best Star Wars narratives in years. Jedi Fallen Order was developed by Respawn Entertainment and is a third-person action-adventure Metroidvania puzzle puzzle-solving tactical combat game. Exploration is immersive, world design is dense and makes me want to discover every little nook and cranny of each planet, and the combat system is challenging but rewarding, taking inspiration from the Dark Souls series of games. Also, lightsaber customization is the best in any Star Wars game ever made, which is almost enough to make this a clear favorite for first place on this list. If you haven't played Jedi Fallen Order, I'd really encourage you to give it a go. The story arc and the way it unfolds itself I found to be really original and exactly what I want in a Star Wars game. So, do you agree with my ranking of these Star Wars games from the last decade? And if not, what's your ranking? Let me know in the comments. And for the history of all Star Wars games released between 2010 and 2020, go watch this video here and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Discord for lots more Star Wars and gaming content. Come tell me your opinion of my list, tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if you agree on those platforms, and thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew, I'll catch you soon. Really sorry about the Revan thing, guys, that was my bad. My goodness, I'm disappointed in myself.
Stay bombastic.